Welcome everyone. Today is Thursday, the 21st of September, 2023, and this is the SIG Cloud Provider Migration Extraction Submeeting. This is a subproject of Kubernetes SIGs, and as such, we follow their meeting guidance, which basically means please treat everyone kindly. And I won't ask you to raise your hand, Andrew, since it's just you and me. So we're talking about KEP 2395 and the update for beta status, which I think is achievable. I've got the new template in place, and I'm starting to kind of move around some of the information to fit that template. The things I'm concerned about is, one, October 6th is our deadline to merge the enhancement. So we've got just a little over 2 weeks to get this done. And then I think the parts that probably still are going to need like the most work are like there's these sections about unit tests and integration tests and EDE tests, and they kind of ask for some links to coverage and whatnot. I know like in the EDE tests were pretty good. I don't know if there was any unit tests or integration specific tests that we should be like linking here or whatever.
I mean, for unit tests, you can basically link like any unit test in the cloud provider repo for the controllers and whatnot. Integration is harder because, yeah, we don't have a lot of integration tests. I don't think so. But that's not necessarily a problem.
Can I just ask you a question about the unit test? Are you talking about from the sample cloud provider repo or from like cloud provider AWS or something?
I mean, like, let me find. Let's see here. Yeah, like one example could be like this. Because I don't think like the unit test coverage, like no one expects the unit test to cover like the actual integration of external providers, but we should test that the controllers that we use for the external providers are like well tested. So as long as we are like unit testing like individual controllers that are part of the overall architecture, I think that's fine.
Okay.
That's just there's a lot more tests in there. So whatever tests you could find, I think just link those.
Okay.
And then yeah, for integration tests, like I would just say for the integration test, like just we skip integration tests because we found more value in end-to-end tests, and like we have plenty of end-to-end tests, so we didn't feel like integration tests were needed. Or maybe like a more better answer, which is, so I feel like the real reason why we don't have integration tests is because like we're talking about testing against like real infrastructure providers, and like it sounds like such a pain to like try to mock provider and integration test. Like we could create a fake provider that runs integration tests, but like how valuable is that really? So just like yeah, like just do everything end to end with the real cloud provider, and that was kind of how we've been doing it. And
yeah, that makes sense to me. I mean, I was kind of figuring these would be the answers to some of these, but I just didn't know for sure. And welcome, Kirthan. Yeah, the EDE test, I think like do we actually want to link to all the EDE tests that we feel exercise the controllers here, or
so I mean, I think the first thing we want to say for the EDB test is to say we actually have all the, like by default in Prow, all the EDB tests are now testing with the external provider. So that should be the first thing we say, because that already is stating that we have quite a lot of coverage already.
yeah.
But then in addition, I would just link out like we have like one we have like two jobs that were specifically testing with Cloud Provider disabled before we did the switch. So I would link to that because that job proves that we've been running, like we've been testing this configuration for a while now, and we just flipped the switch recently. I'll dig it up for you in a second. And then the other test I will link is the recent test, the recent proud job I added to pull in the latest Kubernetes libraries in Cloud Provider GCP. And I know Dim's also said AWS added a periodic job to do the same thing. So I would link those two because those are more like supplementary test coverage that we're going to use as additional signals. Let me pull up the jobs.
Okay. And welcome, Caleb. We're reviewing the updates to KEP 2395 right now, Kirthan and Caleb. So just to kind of like dovetail on what you were saying there, Andrew, there was nothing, we had nothing in the test plan section before. I think that might have been like a new section that was added or something. And so I added some language here to talk about how we're going to leverage the existing tests that we already have. And that, this change to the new cloud controller managers is not changing like anything behavioral in the way users use Kubernetes. It's just changing like a configuration. So those tests should still be good, once we switch to the external stuff. So I tried to put some language in here about that.
Okay. Makes sense.
And then I also added a note about because there was something here. I added a note that like we're working to expand the tests, but I didn't think those tests would be like a prerequisite for this work that needs to be done. So just kind of signaling to people that we are expanding the tests, but we're not planning new tests as part of this KEP. I guess, do you think it's worth mentioning of that, or should I not even mention it?
Well, I mean, we've added a lot of tests over the years related
Right.
to this. So I wouldn't say that we're not adding new tests. But I think it's worth saying that our focus is going to be preserving like all existing behaviors before the migration. So just ensuring that like we're not breaking compatibility or we're not changing any behaviors that would be unexpected. So yeah, I wouldn't say that there's no new tests, but I would just put the focus on like we're making sure all the existing tests are passing and in good shape before we do the switch.
Yeah. So like I just said no new tests were planned as part of this KEP, but we're continuing to work, I guess maybe I should change this up a little bit.
Yeah, I wouldn't even mention that. I would just say the prerequisite is that we are ensuring all existing tests pass. Because if you say like, oh, we're not planning any, first of all, it's not true. Like we have added tests, but also I don't want to like people questioning, oh, we have no test coverage. It's like, no, we have a lot, but just not. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll take out that part about no new test planning and just I'll make sure to reinforce that we're like the prerequisite here is ensuring that all the existing tests are passing.
Yeah.
What I wanted to note was like I guess maybe there's a difference between the tests we have that are non-cloud provider specific, like some of the service tests and whatnot, and then some of the cloud provider specific tests, like like the node lifecycle tests and whatnot. There's like going to be a difference in how those get run.
Yeah. It's also worth mentioning that individual providers have their own suite of tests that
Right.
all run using the external configuration. So I would also mention that.
Okay.
To say, like from core Kubernetes, we've done this like effort to ensure all the existing tests and conformance can all pass using this external configuration. But we also like delegate to individual providers to make sure that they're testing this configuration extensively, and they have their own tests to test their own implementation and whatnot. And yeah, like if we need references, like all the repos have plenty of test references, and we can just point to all of them. I'm trying to find. So Dim's mentioned AWS having new periodic jobs, but I'm trying to find where the task grid link is. I see. So he says there's a CI Cloud Provider AWS E2B Kube Test 2. I'll just put it in the chat. Let me first put. So this test from GCP, this is the job that pulls in the latest Kubernetes source and compiles the Cloud Controller Manager and runs edu test. So that's additional coverage that basically ensures latest Kubernetes is not breaking like a downstream implementation. And then I don't have like links to test results, but Dim's mentioned. This is what Dim's mentioned in the chat. So CI Cloud AWS E2B Kube Test 2 is supposedly pulling latest KK. But I don't see any references to the. Maybe I can look up the test grid. 1 second. If I look up that job, I think I can find out test grid. AWS. Okay, here it is. This one.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That like definitely helps out in the test section. I think the other thing that I'm a little concerned about is this graduation criteria as well, because I'm just not sure. Like, I'm not sure what we actually did in the alpha part that we could talk about, and then kind of what we're. I mean, I guess I could figure out what we're doing in the beta part now, but I'm really not sure like how this is supposed to be filled out, I guess.
Yeah. So for alpha, I would basically just say. Sorry, I think I have to sneeze. No, I don't. So for alpha, it's basically when we added the feature gate, we were basically in a place where we had very stable implementations of like all the external providers. So I would just say like stable working out of tree implementations for the existing entry providers with extensive testing and whatnot. And then the beta criteria is really just like beta is the biggest gap, or the beta is the biggest jump because we're default disabling the cloud providers. So for beta, I would say so the criteria is basically going to be most, if not all, CI in Kubernetes is using external provider, which is complete. And then in addition to that, we have multiple providers testing the latest Kubernetes libraries. So we have that as well.
Well, could you say the first part of that again?
We have multiple providers that are pulling in the latest Kubernetes libraries from master and doing like EDB tests on those. The reason why that's relevant is because for the previous point, we basically switched all the Kubernetes CI to use external provider, but we're pinning it on some like known good version, right? And so the last point is relevant because we're no longer, because we're pinning it on a known good version, we need to also ensure there's coverage for whatever changes that are pushed into master in the Kubernetes repo. So I don't know how you want to word that, but yeah, that's kind of the main idea. Um, and then I would say,
I guess, does that make sense if I say, like, since we're pinning to known versions, we also need to ensure that we're not breaking against the tip of
yeah,
master? Okay.
that sounds good. And then I would also say like uh, extensive documentation and communication about or something along those lines. Like we're gonna break a lot of users, so let's make sure we have the right documentation in place.
Okay, and I guess we don't need to fill out the GA stuff yet, or do we need to fill out GA here as well?
We could. I mean, we don't have to, but I would fill it out because the GA one's really easy. Like I think GA is basically like, oh, we went beta for like 2 releases and things are okay. So let's just flip the switch to GA. So I don't know, I would just write like 1 or 2 releases of soak time in beta, something like that. Um,
Okay. And then, like, do we want to see, like, I think is there any code left entry, or should we say, like, removal of all, like,
yeah, I would. Yeah, it's debatable if we want to remove the actual source code on the same release we go GA, or if we want to go GA, like wait a release and then like axe all the code. Uh, because for whatever reason, if we wanted to backtrack and flip the switch back to beta and we already removed the source code, like that'd be a huge pain. So uh, yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know. We
I
can
guess
do.
maybe
I
we
mean,
put that under the deprecation part.
uh, under the deprecation part.
Well, I guess that's deprecation of this feature. I don't know. I was trying to understand how they have, like, in the, in the graduation criteria, the last point is the deprecation part. And I don't know if that's talking about, like,
Oh, I
how,
see. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I guess yeah, you could put it in there. Like I don't know. I think that might be referring to because feature gates now can be marked as there's a new phase for feature gates. There's like alpha, beta, GA, and deprecation. So I think it applies if you're using the deprecation phase, which we're
Right.
not using.
Okay. I didn't know if we needed to mention the deprecation of, like, the flags that'll be on, like, the kubelet and stuff like that and those kind of things.
Yeah. Uh yeah, we probably should. We probably should. I mean, it's implied with the state of the feature gate that it's deactivated, but yeah, we should.
I guess, are there any other flags we're going to remove aside from cloud provider? Would
Well,
we remove? Yeah.
well, we're not removing the cloud provider
Oh,
flag.
right, right.
We're just removing the option to set it to whatever the entry options are.
Okay. And I realize we're cutting through time pretty quick here. I don't think there was anything else on the agenda for today, but let me just double check. Yeah, okay, just this. Okay. I think I got a couple more questions here. So upgrade downgrade strategy. I've been trying to write this part mostly today. and I'm trying to leverage the documentation that we already have created upstream, like the Cloud Controller Manager administration docs and the, migrating replicated control plane. I've also tried to link to each of the providers that formerly existed as in tree to their specific out of tree CCM doc. I could not find one for GCE though. I don't know if something like that exists, but I didn't see it on the Cloud Provider repo.
Yeah, probably should.
And then I'm bringing together the guidance that DIMS has been putting together on that issue in the KK repo. I'm trying to figure out how best to format it here, but I'll also include a link so that I guess users could check that. So that's kind of what I'm working through now, and I think I'm okay with this stuff. Like we'll just kind of discuss it on review or whatever. I don't think there's much to go into there. But this like version SKU strategy, like do we need to handle this or?
Um, I think the version SKU is handled by the CCM migration stuff. Um,
Like I would
but
expect version SKU to be like each provider's CCM is where the version SKU would take place, right? Like they're going to be responsible for making sure that their cloud provider is up to date. And in other
yeah,
respects, we would just follow the normal
yeah,
SKU, right?
yeah. So I would just add a note that I think we have this documented somewhere else, but the version SKU for Cloud Controller Manager is effectively the same version SKU policy for Kube Controller Manager. So, and then you can also mention that each provider publishes their own like supported version and their SKUs, as far as I can tell. Maybe not for GCP, but I know some other providers do that. So, um, yeah, mention that.
Okay. So I think that really answers a lot of my questions. And thank you, Andrew. Oh, you know what? Do we want to do you want me to try and put some stuff in here for drawbacks about this?
Um, yeah, you could. I mean, I think the biggest drawback is the amount of time and complexity the whole effort was, but like that's already something we've paid the cost for. So I'm not sure. Like what other drawbacks we mean. I guess like the other drawback is toil and potential operational load on users because they have to do for those who have to do the migration themselves and not using like managed solutions. So I guess that's a legitimate drawback.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't touch any of the alternative stuff. I'm just trying to look for where I've added content here because there were some sections we needed to kind of fill out a little more. Yeah, okay. So the other kind of big change that I made from the way we had it before was in the new format, in the new template format, there's like a proposal section and then a design details section. And so I I took what we used to have in what we called the approach, which was like a summary of all the changes. I put those in the proposal as well as the risks and mitigations. And then I broke out the individual phase details to the actual design details part of it.
Yep.
Um,
That sounds good.
okay. Um, yeah, so I think other than that, I think those are most of the changes I've made so far. And then just trying to get the release sign off checklist filled out too. I figured that'll take some more work from the community, but I just tried to fill out the ones I know we've done already.
Yep. Sounds good.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess like that was really all I had. And thank you, Andrew, for all the help there. Like I think hopefully maybe by tomorrow or Monday I'll have the latest version up and we can start reviewing it then and kind of get to the next part.
Sounds good.
Cool. Are there any other topics that people would like to talk about in the last couple minutes here?
Oh, I guess one thing to worth calling out, the external project for the persistent volume admission labeler. Uh, I've been on call for the past week or so, and so I haven't been able to look at that. But I'm really hoping that before even the kept deadline, the prototypes is like, or the project is a viable like replacement, and we can do more testing with it. And I guess the way to know we're done with that is we'll have to integrate it into Kubernetes CI. So we'll have it like installed by default and whatnot. Um,
And then you want to bring like a mention of it into this cap, basically.
yeah, likely. Yeah.
Okay.
So
That sounds good. Although you're gonna be burning the midnight oil to get that integrated, like up and running in NCI in the next 2 weeks.
yeah, we'll see. Yeah, I need to free up some time with some internal stuff to figure out when to do that. But yeah, I'll try to
Yeah,
find the time for that.
I hear that.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Yeah, nothing else. Kirthan, Caleb, anything from you two?
Nothing specific. Same thing on the same topic. Like I was mentioning, like in the SIG Cloud Provider that I'm started working on the Facebook extension thing. So yeah, I made changes. I was testing. It looks good. So yeah, hopefully I'll try to get a PR by before the next meeting, like next Wednesday's meeting. That's what I'm trying to
Cool.
say.
Yeah, sounds good. Caleb, anything you wanted to add?
Oh, no, nothing from my end. Thanks.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thanks for coming out, everybody. And hopefully we'll have this capped into at least like a reviewable state by next week, and we can inch our way towards getting this into beta state. Thanks again for all the help, Andrew.
My pleasure.
All right, cool. Take
Yeah.
care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.